All right, good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, and I'd like to call the Monday, July 22nd meeting of Kimberley City Council to order, held here on the place we call Kukumanum, the homeland of the Ktunaxa peoples. Late items. We have a couple of items referenced here, Maurice. The letter from Elizabeth Richardson regarding the Creston Street development variance permit, and then the Fairway Drive development permit. Other than, well, given those two, do we have any other items?
There's no other late items.
Okay, with the addition of those items, could I have a mover to adopt? Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor McGuire seconds. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We have a couple of minutes to adopt. First up is the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on June the 24th. Mover, please. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the minutes of the special meeting of council held on July the 8th. Mover, please. Councillor Roberts, thanks. Councillor Cairns seconds. Slow down. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And finally, we have the minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee held on May the 1st. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire moves. Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, formalities out of the way. We do have a delegation this evening. Sergeant Woodcox for the quarterly report. Hi, Steve. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This will be the report for the first quarter, fiscal year 24-25, and encompassing the months of April to June 2024. So every year when we do these new quarterly reports, we come up with 3 objectives that we want to meet and that we think are important after talking to, thank you, to people in the community. So the first one again, and the first one that we get the most calls, I think, about is traffic. And I made reference to impaired driving. So impaired driving continues to be an issue. We continue to see quarter after quarter of that, unfortunately, getting worse. So we try to combat that with road checks at certain times and areas throughout the community to try to combat that. In the last 2 days on the weekend, Friday and Saturday, we were able to stop 8 impaired drivers and take them off the road. So that's in 2 days. And that's not all related to July Fest that happened on the weekend. This is happening in every area of the community. So that is something we want to put some resources together to try to combat. Because for one reason or the other, that continues to be a problem, and it's putting everyone at risk in the community. Not only impaired driving, but speeding. I mean, I make reference to 2 in this report, 2 people, one doing 196 kilometers an hour on the highway, one doing, I think it was 152. So that was put out in a media release in June. But just yesterday, we were able to stop somebody doing 172 kilometers in Meadowbrook. So they were fined and their vehicles impounded for 7 days. So we try to be out there. We try to sometimes put these media releases out to make people aware that we're out there, because driving certainly seems to be getting worse. And we just want to let the community know that we're going to put more resources towards that, because they're putting everyone at risk on the road. So that's the first objective this year. The second one, and the same one we had from last year, is youth. So again, I think it's really important that we get involved with the schools. We get to know some of these youth. We've had numerous files last year from the schools, some serious investigations, and sometimes by us building trust with those youth, it does make some of those investigations go better. And I think once you build relationships with those kids, that trust goes a long way. So I think that's where we need to spend some of our time with the kids when they're young, and go and do school talks and tell them the dangers of using drugs. Because we've talked about this here before. You use drugs these days, you might use it once and that might be the last time. With fentanyl and everything that is out there, it's just dangerous. And I think we need to go to schools and we need to tell the kids, this is what we see and this is what's going on here. So in my day and age, you know, people could try drugs and wake up the next day, maybe feel a little bad, but they would survive. It's a whole different world now.
So I think that's another thing that we're not going to spend some time towards. The last one is police and community relations, and this is one I want to talk a little bit in depth about. So I think some of our greatest successes come from the fact that, you know, we build relationships and we build trust with people. So we have now partnered with a church in town. The church doesn't want to be identified, but what this is we attend a lot of serious calls. So whether it's domestic assaults, whether it's any kind of calls, and we go to calls where we see that, you know, we find people that are in need, we can say to these people, hey, listen, we're partnering with the church. Do you need some food? Do you need this? Do you need that? Because a lot of people, like myself, will not go to a food bank when they need something. But again, if we're dealing with the same people, we have those relationships, a lot of those people will say yes. So in the first couple of months, we were able to bring 6 food hampers to people. And these are people that need it. I mean, I hear it all the time, how difficult it is for people to afford to live, afford to pay the bills. So it's simply, we come in contact with people. Maybe we see what's going on in the household and say, can we help you? If they say yes, I make a phone call to the church. We have a lot of volunteers that are more than happy to take the phone call. I get a call in a day or two. I then go bring the food to the family. And for us too, it's very rewarding. We all the time deal with negative things. And it's nice now and again to go to a house where maybe a wife and a couple kids are victims of a domestic assault and they're excited like it's Christmas, right? Because someone's helping them. Would they go and get help at a food bank? Probably not. Would they, when we're at their house, say, can we help you? And bring their stuff when no one's around? Yeah, and it's worked and it's working. And I want to thank the church. I've been talking to the church reached out. We had a meeting, we've set this up. I don't know why we didn't set this up 4 years ago when I came here, but this is one of the most positive things for everyone involved. And we're helping people that actually need it. So I just wanted everyone to know that. The church has been great. The church doesn't want to be identified, but that's an invaluable service to the community. So most of the time I read what's on the paper, but I just want to bring a couple of things to the attention of everyone here. So I put a media release out today because we did have a report of a missing person back on July 4th, somebody from town here. So throughout that investigation, on July 13th, we put a photo out to the media in hopes of garnering some evidence to help locate this individual. The following day, someone had called. We were able to locate some of the belongings of that person down in town by the creek. We deployed search and rescue. They weren't able to find that person. However, Friday night, a few younger kids were down by the creek and saw what they thought was a body in the creek. So I can confirm we have located that person. Unfortunately, they're deceased. There's nothing criminal in nature, but I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention tonight because I did put something out in the media today about that. And our condolences to the family, but is not criminal in nature, but it does bring closure. But the kids and the family are both being, that were related to victim services because it's traumatizing even for the kids to see that. So I just wanted everyone to know about that one. One other thing, I put something out to the media today as well. We've had 3 incidents in town site of someone removing or loosening lug nuts on vehicles. So we've had a couple of those vehicles driving down the road losing tires. So we sent something out today just to make people aware, inspect your vehicle before you go out, because I don't know at this point who's doing it, if it's teenagers, if it's adults, but regardless who it is, they're really putting people at risk. So that was just sent out today, just an FYI to the community, because a lot of people don't know that's happening. So, and if they see anything to report anything suspicious, we think it's happening overnight. The 3 instances, we don't have any video of anyone doing it because the people themselves didn't have video, but there is someone up there that's doing something. And like I said, putting a lot of people at risk by doing that. So yeah, I think that's it. The calls for service down probably 5% from the same time last year. 10 reports were sent to Crown, meaning 10 cents of criminal charges were sent to Crown. So 10 people have been charged criminally for various offenses. July Fest this weekend went really well. The people organizing it. So we had July Fest, we had July on the side. Both those events, no issues, no major issues whatsoever. But again, it's the impaired driving. So 8 impaired drivers were caught in the 2 evenings, Friday and Saturday evening, over those 2 evenings. So I'm glad they were taken off the road, but the events themselves were handled great. The security there was top notch. And again, I just want to thank everyone from town for behaving so well. And there was very, very little issues there. So, and I'm open as usual to any questions you have. So.
Eventful, to say the least. Thanks for that, Steve.
Yeah.
Council, questions for Sergeant Woodcox or any comments? I have one. The total calls for service on the report, January to March over to, April to June, up about what, 25%, well, probably higher than that, probably close to 30%. Is that a time of the year thing for the most part?
I think so, because that January and February, most times the weather is bad, people are inside, and when you get into April and June, the weather gets better, you see more traffic, you have more traffic complaints. So yeah, I'd say that's definitely the time of year, and that's consistent year over year, so.
Right, okay, cool. Go ahead, Councillor Dunneback.
Yeah, I just want to commend you on your work that you've been doing there with your team and getting involved with the community church and giving back to people that, like you say, wouldn't otherwise probably ask for it. That's awesome.
I totally agree. I'm very proud of that. And like I said earlier, I don't know why. I talk to the church regularly. I'm like, I don't know why we didn't start this years ago, but all we can do is look forward, and it's working, and we're maybe connecting with people that otherwise wouldn't go to these things, agencies for help. So yeah, it's great. So, and it's good for us. Like I said earlier, it's a positive thing in our day. And I look forward to delivering those hampers when I've initiated this as much as the people receiving it. So I get as much out of it as they do. So thank you.
Outstanding. All right, last call, Council. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you very
Keep up
much,
the great
everyone.
work. Thank you. All right, let me find my place. What's that? Yeah, exactly. Just going back to the add-ons. Okay, the first item we'll deal with tonight is the development permit for Fairway Drive, which is the item that was included in late items, item number 2 under late items. And the motion on the floor is that council approve development permit 2024-001 to allow the development of a multi-unit residential development in the Alpine area, subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff report. There are half a dozen and a lengthy read, so I'll just reference council back to the conditions. Councillor Roberts moves. Let's get it on the floor, and then you can ask your question.
Yep.
Councillor Roberts moves, and Councillor McBain seconds. Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I can see the map that I've been given. I'm just clarifying for myself that Fairway Drive is that little turnoff that goes into Lone Pine. Is that correct?
Tall Pines.
Tall Pines?
Yep.
Okay. Lone Pine must be another city.
If you're driving by and just kind of rubberneck, you'll see that the trees on the other side of Tall Pines have all been cleared,
Right
and
in it.
that's the area.
Okay, I did have it situated correctly. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Troy, are you speaking to this? Hello, Troy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, it's just a lot coming in hot. And that's really my only concern is I just don't feel like I've been able to, I did a quick spin and I nothing was jumping out at me that was scaring me off. It's just, I feel like I haven't really had enough time to.
No, fair enough.
read.
The combination of our schedule this summer and CMHC deadlines for the developer have kind of conflued a confluence of needed to get this done. Staff have been through this. Assuming Troy's going to be able to talk to this momentarily, and have come forward with the recommendations. So, yes. Yep, there you go.
Okay, good. Sorry about that.
Oh, Troy, do you have your phone
Yeah,
dialed in as well?
Yeah, I had a couple connections going there because I wasn't sure that was the first one was going to work. So I've
Okay,
closed that
cool.
off now. Should be better.
Yep, it is. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just not sure I might just leave the video off here just to make sure we maintain the connection. That's all right. I apologize.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, really, appreciate the comments there. It is a lot of information here that's been thrown at council as a late minute add-on. But this development permit has been in the works for a little while, and we are now prepared to recommend moving forward with this. Yeah, as was discussed there, this is the adjacent to the Tall Pines residential development, adjacent to Trickle Creek, between Trickle Creek Golf Course and Jerry Sorensen Way, and also just kind of between the Tall Pines and the Alpenglow Court areas. So it's previously forested area, has already been cleared to make way for the development, but this section of land was originally part of the original Tall Pines development, and that which of course never proceeded, and has been sold for future residential development. It's always been designated for residential development in the OCP and is zoned in the Alpine zoning bylaw in the RTA 3 zone. And so, yeah, proposed total of 39 dwelling units, 16 of which will be 1-bedroom units and 23 3-bedroom units. So a nice mix of unit sizes. There's a combination of kind of lower level, in 2 of the buildings, there's lower level units and then an upper level 2-story unit with a rooftop deck. So we'll add some additional much needed long-term rental housing to the supply. There is, although this particular zone wasn't one of the restricted zones in the recent small-scale multi-unit housing amendments, there was a definition amendment that this project does benefit from that was included in that, and that was a modification of the townhouse definition to allow for stacked townhouse developments, which is a couple of the buildings are of that type where there's above and below units. There's sufficient vehicle and bicycle parking and meets all the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Some of the 2-bedroom units have internal garage storage, and then there's also other surface parking, as well as an additional 11 extra parking stalls for visitors, and I guess first come first serve kind of basis there. There is bike storage lockers for the single bedroom units, and then like I said, the 3-bedroom units have their garage where their bike parking will be included there. There is all of the vegetation has been removed from the site. All the trees have been cut down, except for there is a 7.6 meter wide tree buffer that's protected by covenant on title, adjacent to the Trickle Creek Golf Course, and that has been maintained. There will be some maintenance of that area yet. There is a pathway to navigate to some of the units, and of course there's still some dead trees and some brush in there that will be removed as part of the additional Fire Smart landscaping plan. And that's one of the conditions that we're recommending in there for the tree cutting permit. We are also recommending a covenant there because of the RTA 3 zoning does allow for tourist accommodation or short-term rental use. We're concerned with the potential use of some of those units in the future, which is allowed by bylaw, and staff wouldn't have any ability to if get a complying application for short-term rental use, we wouldn't have any tools available to prevent that. So we're recommending as a condition that there be a restrictive covenant registered on there to restrict use of those to residential use only, and not be allowed for short-term rental use. There's also attached to this report is a geotechnical hazard assessment report, the wildfire hazard assessment report, which are fairly standard items for these. There wasn't a lot of steep slope areas on the site, but a few sections where that triggered that requirement. But that report satisfies those concerns and ensures that there's no landslide risk or anything there that can't be managed with the way the site will be developed. And of course, like I said, the wildfire hazard has been significantly reduced with the tree clearing that's happened on site. And staff will ensure that the landscape plan is done in accordance with Fire Smart guidelines and that the wildfire covenant will be registered there to ensure all successive owners and occupants are aware of the fire hazard risk and perpetuity there. Yeah, I think most of the other conditions are pretty straightforward, but the other one I want to make sure I touched on was there was a fair bit of back and forth with the proponents there about the total amount of floor area, the gross floor area is measured of all of the floor areas in all of the buildings and all the units on the property, and there's a maximum in this zone, and they're right tight to that maximum, and they've had to modify grade a little bit to meet the definition so that a significant amount of the floor area is exempted from the floor space ratio calculation. And they've shown us on the plans there as revised with some modification of grade that they can meet that requirement for grade and for basement definitions there so so some of those areas are exempted. We're continuing to have some back and forth around the building height in some cases. There's a rooftop access to the rooftop, or an access to the rooftop decks above some of the units. So it's creating a bit of a uncertainty about the height calculation. And initially one of their proposals was to change that to kind of a horizontal rooftop deck access. And the feedback from the building official is that isn't going to satisfy current code requirements. So they need to go back to that vertical rooftop deck access hatch, if you will, at the top above the deck. And but again, with the grade changes that they've worked out, we're confident that they'll be able to modify those plans to suit the building height requirement as well. There's some potential risk that they won't be able to do that without further plan revision, and it might possibly lead to consideration of a variance for building height. But we think that they can probably achieve that, and we'll ensure that that's done prior to building permit issuance. Or if necessary, we'll be coming back to council with proposed variance to deal with the height issue. But we think that they can get that resolved there with some further plan revisions. Yeah, and I think that's everything I wanted to go over, unless there's any other questions about any of the recommended conditions or any of the other information.
All right, thanks, Troy. I appreciate that. Council, questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Cairns.
Thank you. Thanks, Troy. As Jason mentioned, it's a lot just having been added to the agenda this afternoon. So yeah, I'm not feeling really comfortable with it, but will do my best. So I'm not familiar, with that area, and I'm just looking at it. Looks like it's also a neighborhood that would be one public road in and out. And I'm wondering how the risk of wildfire and planning for evacuation is being addressed there. Is there an assessment, and how is the risk being mitigated? And there's a couple of other questions as well. Just,
Sure.
How many, I understand that it's a purpose-built rental, and it's adding to the diversity of our supply of housing. But how many, and there's CMHC is involved, so how many of the units are actually affordable of the 39 units that are being proposed here?
Okay.
Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah.
Two questions there.
Yeah, I'll tackle the first one there. As I said, the wildfire hazard assessment report's been completed and identified as a low risk in part to the tree removal that's already occurred on site, and the plans for the exterior finishes and the landscaping will comply with Fire Smart requirements. And also its proximity to the Trickle Creek Golf Course helps to reduce that overall hazard risk assessment for the site. In terms of kind of evacuation planning, it's not super clear from the site plan images that are provided with the report. I apologize for that, but this is a fairly short distance from Jerry Sorensen Way. There's a short piece of Fairway Drive. I don't even have an estimate, sorry, on, but it's quite a short road off of Jerry Sorensen Way, and then of course just the road into the site through the tall pine strata and into the site. So they're, it should be fairly easy, I guess, for people to access Jerry Sorensen Way, and then from there they're a fairly short distance from the Norton Avenue intersection as well. So some options there for a couple of options out of the ski hill zone there, depending on what kind of evacuation incident is happening there. So I think, in that sense, it's fairly low concern. The other question, I'm not sure of we're aware that there is a CMHC funding, but I'm not sure that I think typically it's kind of a 10% of units commitment through CMHC funding. I'm not sure if the applicant is in the room there that might be able to speak to that. But there's no local government requirement, of course, for any dedication of units or anything like that at the present time. So if there would be any commitment from their CMHC funding source, then that would be the only requirement for any below market rental units.
Yeah, and I think that typically depends on the stream. Got a quick answer for that, Ryan? And you'll know about that. Much increase. Councillor McBain.
Just a procedural thing, like if we have somebody talking from the gallery, probably be good to get them on
The mic.
the mic, just so everybody can hear it. Yeah, I just think it'd be helpful, just given the short notice. Thanks, Ryan.
We got it. So I'm Ryan Sarfeld. I'm both with Coolcon Construction and then also a part owner in the development as well through Pavilion Properties. Our course of action and direct question to this is through the energy efficiency stream of CMHC. So it doesn't directly require any affordability. We did that partially as a calculation of seeing what's coming on the market currently with the Jim Ogilvie Way, as well as the Kimberley Crossing project. So there's roughly 100 units between those two that are in the more affordable nature to ours. Again, that being said, our 1 bedrooms, the 16 attached to our project will be pretty close to what CMHC would deem affordable. And our 3 bedrooms, albeit are a little bit more expensive than that in our pro formas, they are offering quite a bit larger services, both in parking and square footage, and then access to nature. So our belief is any benefit of rental units that come onto the market should help as a whole. And we're hoping that this sort of serves the middle instead of just the low income.
Thanks, Ryan. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
And nice to meet you. And wondering if you can put a number on that one bedroom kind of rental rate that's around the affordability mark? Is there like, can you give us a rough idea?
It varies a little bit
Mhm.
unit to
Yeah.
unit. But we're in the range of $1,700 to $1,900 depending on the size of the unit and the number of parking spaces, et cetera, which is in line with the Broad Street developments in the new units that were developed in Cranbrook. They're actually at 1968 today and about 100 square feet smaller. So we're offering 10-foot ceilings, direct access to the future park and parking and everything there. So we're hoping that helps serve the more young professional. And then with that, take a little competition out of the market for the more low income.
So it's also important to note that we're at the development permit stage, which means it's pro forma, and an awful lot, can and will change between now and, construction times.
Absolutely. We're about 14, 16 months, well, partially with your grace. We're about 14, 16 months out in our ideal for being completed. So a lot can and will change in that timeline. So we believe we've priced it at sort of what would be a reasonable average to today's standard, and then hoping that we will then sort of level into a more approachable and competitive, because after all, we'll have to fill 39 units upon ready and not over time.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Go ahead, Councilor McGuire.
Yeah, I just had a question about the covenant around short-term rentals. I was just curious if is that a permanent thing that's irreversible? Like, is this something that, looking 30 years down the line and maybe there's a ton of housing and not a lot of rentals available, short-term rentals available up at the ski hill, is this something that we could revisit at a later date?
Troy?
Yeah, the idea behind the restrictive covenant on title, it would be on the title for as long as the city wants it to be there. So if there's a request to have it removed and the city's not agreeable for it to be removed from title, then there'd be no obligation to allow it to be removed. But if conditions change or something in the future and there's, a good reason for releasing that restrictive covenant, then the city council of the day could choose to have that released. But the owner of the property would not be able to release it from title without the city's agreement.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councilor McGuire. I was actually going to ask a question about that as well, Troy. We are really, really challenged on visitor accommodation. We haven't had any new hotels built. We've really relied on the STRs to broaden opportunity and availability for visitor accommodation. And on the residential construction side, we added 154 units last year, probably another 100 plus happening, or we're on track for that this year. It just seems like, we need to hedge our bets on the visitor accommodation. And like Councilor McGuire, I wouldn't like to see this locked in or taken out of council's hands, either current council or future council.
Well, it certainly wouldn't take it out of any council's hands. I think the proponent has made it very clear that this is for purpose of long-term rental housing, and there is a strong identified need despite the recent developments that have been approved and constructed. We need more housing in our community, and I would dare say more than we need more short-term rental units. And with this development, the way it's planned, we think it's essential that we protect this from being turned, any of the units being turned to short-term rental use. And that's why we recommend the restrictive covenant. Like I said before, if conditions change in the future where we don't need so many long-term rental units, then that can be a simple resolution of council in the future to not require the restrictive covenant to prevent short-term rental use of these units.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the explanation, Troy. Go ahead, Councilor Dunavac.
I guess I got a bunch of questions. So this is adjacent to Alpine Crescent, correct?
Across the road.
Across the road.
It's across Jerry Sorensen Way from Alpine Crescent. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. My concerns are is the infrastructure that's there going to be able to subside with this extra 38 houses? that'll have the possibility of 13 people a night if they're going to be rented out as Airbnbs?
No, they're not. That's
They're
the
not?
point. These are long-term rentals.
Okay.
Yep, period. Yep.
And these are being built to the max capacity right now, taking up the biggest footprint they can? Is that what I understood?
Yeah, they're maximizing the allowances under the zoning.
Yeah, I think,
That's the allowance for the lot size.
yep, I understand that.
Yeah.
I think we've sort of been down this road, and I'd like to just say right now that I would like to see maybe a reduction of 15% to allow for parking and growth. 39 units with 2 per household, that's gonna be super tight in there. And maybe the opportunity to start looking at some sort of shared parkade to densify the parking. I think if we're gonna start building stuff and densifying that, we gotta really start doing it properly. We gotta make sure that the infrastructure is there. I also am curious about the effects that are gonna happen on the street below it now that this whole area that used to be a beautiful park pit is now gonna be shedding snow and water constantly, and what it's gonna look like for the downhill residents.
So Troy, you
Yeah,
want to respond, please?
Yeah, I can speak to that. There is ample parking proposed in this project plan. I mentioned the larger units have 2 units, will have access to 2 units for each large unit and one unit for each of the smaller units, which meets the bylaw requirements. And in fact, there is, as I mentioned, some additional stalls being provided on site for overflow parking for whether it be for visitors or, other short-term users of the apartment. By that, I mean, an extra renter or something in a unit, whatever the case may be, but there will be some additional parking. So they're providing more than the bare minimum. And of course, parking is one of the things that adds a lot of expense to the cost of housing, and I would recommend against requiring additional parking, given the amount that they are proposing and are going to provide in the project. So, something like a parkade is probably makes a project unfeasible, probably. It just adds way too much cost overall to the housing, and it's kind of counterintuitive to what we're trying to achieve with adding more housing in the community. And I didn't really answer the first part of the question or the earlier question about the servicing is, as I mentioned, this site was proposed for development right from the start. It was created with development in mind and as part of the overall resort master development plan. And there was no significant concern here about the capacity of the infrastructure to handle this proposed development.
Councillor McBain.
Yeah, I think just some of the questions that are being passed around the table is just because of the tight nature of us in the little review time. But I think in principle, one of the words that I heard, I don't know if it was from you, Mr. Mayor, was hedging. And I like that in the sense that we recognize that there's a need for long-term rentals in town. I mean, I don't think anybody can deny that. And then by putting in place on title, limiting, or basically restricting access to the short-term rental, kind of takes away the risk. It helps at least bolster the current short-term rentals, but at least it protects the rental pool within town. So to me, there's a lot of advantage here. But again, this is just my quick scan of this. I think with respect to, maybe some of the concerns that Kevin had with respect to groundwater, we do have a geotech report attached to this. I'm sure there's plenty of detail in that, but overall, I mean, I think the concept, the idea seems very favorable to me, and yeah, I would just like to have a little more time to read it. But that's it. So, and I understand the constraints.
Yeah. So thanks, Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor.
So again, appreciating the work that's gone into this and the effort here. And you know, I've been watching the Broad Street development in Cranbrook, and people are moving out because they can't afford it. And we have been doing a lot of development, a lot of purpose-built rentals, and not getting affordable housing out of it. We need places for people to live who are earning, you know, under $30 an hour. So that's kind of in the, you know, around $1,200-1,300 a month. And there's, you know, there's a lot of, I'm watching communities around us that are doing a lot of 100% affordable housing projects. And I realize that's a completely different model. I have a really hard time supporting another development that's not in the range, the price range that we really need here. So yeah, that's where I'm at. We've got limited water, infrastructure, land, and we have a really big need for affordable housing. And I think that the energy efficiency piece, that with current building science, it's possible to do those, but it is a different model. So I'm very hesitant to support something like this. So yeah.
So thanks for the comments, Councillor Cairns. So you know, I think we need to take a step back and look at the big picture. And the big picture is affordable housing and income-driven housing are not built by developers that are purchasing land to bring market housing to the community, which we also need tons of. We're fortunate that the several of the projects that we have on their way or on the books are taking a stream within CMHC that's going to see 10%, you know, of those units identified as affordable housing. If we just do a quick math on that number, we're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or 35 units that will be coming in over the next couple of years that are part of those developments. But we need market housing too, and we need lots of it. It's taken 5 years to get developers to the point where they're interested in investing in this community. It's not something that just happens overnight. We need a diverse range of housing. This particular one is not under that definition of affordable housing. And that doesn't mean that it's bad or isn't right for the community. In fact, quite the opposite. I think we should be absolutely ecstatic that the investment for this housing is happening in the community. We deal with the income driven through not-for-profit societies, through BC Housing and streams that are completely different than what the developers, this particular developer and others are bringing to the community. And I don't disagree that we need more of that, but suggesting that we stop this type of development or not support it simply because we want more of something else is, honestly, it's counterproductive. It's shooting ourselves in the foot. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like this is exactly what we wanted to see from some of the changes that we've made to our bylaws recently and our zoning bylaws, is this more intense, densified type of housing, because it's financially a good decision to have a densification model within the city that concentrates housing and decreases the amount of infrastructure that we need to support those housing pieces. And this has always been slated for development. And I'm happy to see that, you know, there is a mix of single unit and multiple bedroom houses here. So yeah, I'm in support of this. I think that it would have been nice to have a little bit of time to review it before I sat down, but that's just the way it is, right? We're in the summer, and I recognize, the need to move on these things. But yeah, I'm in support of this because of the densification that it offers. I do think that we do need those low-income housing projects, and that's not necessarily going to be every single development that we have in town. These are private pieces of property, and there is some degree of, the developer owns the property, the developer wants to develop it, they should have permission at some level to build what they want to build. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Thank you, Councilor McGuire. Councilor Roberts?
Thank you.
Then we'll move on.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I'd just like to note that the same amount of snow is going to fall on that piece of property, whether there's anything on it or not. Eventually, it either all evaporates or all runs downhill. And so that to me is, I appreciate that there's a geotech thing, but it doesn't change, the snow doesn't change no matter what's there. And the other piece I wanted to remark on was a point that this gentleman made about the fact that, well, I feel it as an older person that keeps living in a house, so no younger person can move into it, that there's a lot, we're part of the problem why there's no houses to move into, is we just keep living too long. And so the tradition of having older houses to move into doesn't exist anymore. But it typically what happens is when you have people the opportunity to move into a lovely new place, there's so many young families here that are looking for an opportunity to upgrade and to change their position, who are home-based businesses and so on, and they move out of that lower cost housing opportunity that they've had and enjoyed into the newer places because they're working their way up the income ladder. And I think we kind of lose sight of that. When people move in there, it's not necessarily because they just came to town. It's because they're a working professional who can now afford to move into that.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. So robust discussion. Thank you, Council. We'll call the question, and the motion on the floor is approval of the development permit as outlined in the staff report. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Sorry, Councillor Cairns. In favor. Okay, thank you. Awesome. The motion is passed. Thanks, Council. Good conversation, and thanks for being here to answer the questions, Ryan.
Thank you. Appreciate all your time. In response to some of your questions, I won't take up any of your time, but I'll happily make myself available if you'd like to go in a deep thought about affordability and the challenges that we have from the shovels and money side. There's lots. It's just an unfortunate reality. And to speak in a project just like ours, over 20% of our costs are attached to CMHC fees, construction finance related fees, and city related fees. And Kimberley, frankly, is a pretty cheap city in the grand scheme of things to develop in. But regardless of any of that, we're still hamstringed before we even start. And then when you add the land and you add potentially challenging zoning restrictions, it becomes deep. And so if you have the time at any point, I'm happy to share the knowledge that we've gained along that, that might add some perspective, and I'm sure there's lots of others that may help with that.
Thanks for that offer. I appreciate it. Okay, next up, we have the zoning amendment, bylaw 2768, which is the residential standard zone. And we have 3 motions on the floor. It looks like I need to do these one at a time. Maurice, you would prefer that? The first motion on the floor is that council approve first reading of the bylaw amendment. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. Do you want to speak to this, Troy?
I should rather not, but I think I should I should add some clarification. Yeah, we discovered an error in the small scale multi-unit housing amendments by bylaw 2764 that council approved at the June 10th meeting as we were working through the consolidation of all of those changes into the overall bylaw. And in fact, quite luckily, we found that somehow when we put the report package together, right from first reading, the bringing together all of the separate pieces of that bylaw, somehow one page of the largest zone, the RS zone, got excluded from that package, and we didn't see that. We clearly know we were working on that in all of the Word version drafts, and in fact it was building on the previous R2 zone amendments, the housing availability amendments. So it was there at the start, but somewhere right before first reading of that bylaw, that page got excluded from the package. So we want to make sure that that's corrected as soon as possible. So
right.
yeah, we've created this bylaw here to make sure that the full content of that RS zone is formally part of the bylaw. So we're recommending the 3 readings and then bring it back at the next possible meeting for adoption.
Thanks,
In
Ray.
the meantime, we have included this page in the consolidated version that's available on the website with a note that that speaks to the error that was made and that the correction is in progress.
All right, thanks, Ray. We appreciate you falling on your sword. So the motion on the floor is for first reading. Could I call the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Second motion is the council approves second reading. Mover, please. Councillor Cairns moves. Councillor Roberts seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And finally, the council approved third reading of the bylaw. Councillor Cairns moves. Councillor Dunneback seconds. All those in favor? The motion is carried. Thanks, Troy. All right, next up. Next up is the updated report for the development variance permit for 2640 Warren Avenue. This was the pad for the manufactured home. The motion on the floor is the council refuse the development variance permit to reduce the minimum setbacks between mobile homes from 6 meters to 4.27 meters, which would allow the siting of an additional home on the last pad that they have available. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Cairns and Councillor McGuire seconds. Okay, Troy, are you going to speak to this, or is the fire chief, or are you both? Council may recall that we deferred this from the last meeting because the chief wasn't available to answer questions that we had. I see that the report is updated and it's a little more extensive, but would appreciate a comment from one or both of you on the item.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment, Mr. Mayor. Is the fire chief in the room there? Sorry, I can't
He is.
tell. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, perhaps there may be some questions for him or some extra comment from him that he'd like to include. But yeah, we're bringing this report back as was previously deferred by council. We have updated the report with a little bit further explanation of why we're recommending refusal and why reasons in support of the recommendation, I guess. So it is a challenge. Of course, we're keen to allow for more housing in the community, and this form of housing is certainly certainly a good form to a good type of housing to to allow for more units at a generally lower cost. But it also comes with some concerns when if these types of structures are too close together, there can be concerns with fire spread between units. I think there was a suggestion that perhaps the buildings or the mobile homes could be modified to kind of increase their fire resistance, but there's concerns with doing that and possibly causing the decertification of the units. They're built, of course, not built on site like site built traditional homes, but built off site and built to a CSA standard. And so there is some challenges with kind of modifying those to fit specific situations that might be allowed under a variance. So staff's recommending against that. The fire chief has provided some additional explanation there. This particular mobile home park is outside of the fire department's 10-minute response zone, which means which is there's a number of neighborhoods that are outside that 10-minute response zone, and the concern there is that that causes unreasonable delay in attending to structure fires, and if structures are closer together, or if they've been modified, whatever, then there's increased risk of structure to structure fire. End up having a much bigger incident than perhaps would be otherwise. Questions, or not sure if the fire chief
Do you want anything to add, Will? Or want to add anything, I mean?
I think Troy did summarize it pretty well. I think the 10-minute response map, from my perspective, is a pretty key point that I'm focusing on. This is an issue that we can prevent at this time. Also in the proposed plan, it doesn't show, it shows a 1 meter entrance exit that further reduces setbacks. Just for council to take that into consideration. It's not just the unit, it's actual all added structures that's reducing setbacks on the unit. Adding the non-combustible siding to the unit as well is a step in the right direction. But outside of that 10-minute response map, we've seen this non-combustible siding actually catch on fire. All depending on the time that the fire department responds in, and further to that too, when a fire is starting in those units, it's actually the windows that tend to go first and then travel into the next unit. So non-combustible siding is a addition, but we still have that risk that I'm seeking to prevent that issue down the road.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Council? Go ahead, Councilor McGuire.
Yeah, it seems like the reason this is coming to us is because the applicant can't locate or can't source a 12-foot wide mobile home. And I'm just curious, I thought that those were readily available. So I'm just curious if you have any knowledge on that.
I can't really speak to the availability, but yeah, I think has been expressed by them. But you know, I guess their options are they can keep looking. There is some other options, you know, recognizing, you know, it's certainly not ideal and there's some cost to that, but mobile homes can be repositioned, and you know, they perhaps can you know, over time as you know, and sometimes they're switched out for newer homes, that sort of thing. So sometimes as over time they can kind of reposition those slightly as homes are switched out, and perhaps widen the gap there a bit, makes a bit more room for a more standard size mobile.
So I have a question. In the report, it says that the location of neighboring mobile homes does not allow for the placement of a mobile home on this particular pad to be in compliance with siting requirements. So the issue isn't with this particular pad, it's with the adjoining pads. Is that what I'm reading there?
I think it might be a combination of the locations of the adjacent homes and the accessory structures attached to them. So it's not just the structures, not just the homes, but the combination of them.
Go ahead, Councilor McGuire.
Yeah, I think it's saying that each one has 40 feet frontage. Like if every single pad in this park has 40-foot frontage, what would be the width of a trailer that's allowable on each pad if they were actually conforming to that site plan? Just out of curiosity.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, sorry?
Each of these pads has a 40-foot frontage, so I'm curious what that allows for the width of the trailers if they were actually following the original plan.
Well, I think that's kind of the issue is that the combination of, you know, incorrect sightings or misaligned sightings over time, and the you know, the crowding of additional structures in between and everything has resulted in this fairly tight space. So I, you know, can't speak to any of the particular details there, but you know, the situation is there's no space available, and a full size structure isn't going to fit in there. You know, I think perhaps if there's some lesser relaxation of the requirement might be supported, but staff does not support the requested variance, which is deemed too significant in this particular case.
So it does here say here that there already has been a variance, or there is a variance in place that has reduced it from the 6 feet to 4.88. That already exists, correct?
Yes, I believe in it. Yeah, and they're, well, that was a previous approval when on, so for to down to 4.88, but now they're requesting to 4.27.
Yeah, so they're asking for another couple of feet basically as part of this one. So as a bit of an aside, Chief, it would be, I think, useful. I'm not sure how many other times our kind of response zone has come up. I think it'd be really useful if you could copy council in on our map, our access map. It's a little bit disconcerting that these guys are right in the absolute middle of the city and they don't fit within the 10-minute zone. I find that just kind of
Yeah.
hard to believe.
Yeah, no.
I guess.
No, you are correct, Mr. Mayor. It is a tough pill to swallow, and it's just based on the model of the call rank service. So this 10-minute response map accounts for response time from my staff from their homes at that 90th percentile shoot time. And then to get dressed and then to actually respond to the incident as well too. So like the reality is we're looking at 4 to 7 minutes of that response time to the hall and then outward from there. So that's why that reduction's in place, but I'd be definitely we'll send that map out to council just so everybody has a view of it.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the answer on that. Constraints that we need to work within.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add to that that mapping information is available on the city website on the public web map as one of the layer options. You can turn that layer on to kind of see where those zones are, those areas are, and that's part of the information when you toggle on any property, whether or not it's within the 10-minute response zone.
Okay, thanks, Troy. Okay, council, I'm going to call the question on this. The motion on the floor is that council refuse. I hate negative motions. It always makes it challenging. The motion on the floor is that council refuse. All those in favor of refusal? Any in favor? Motion is carried, which means that the variance is refused. Thanks for the input on that, Chief. Much appreciated. Okay, next up we have the development variance permit for 445 Creston Street. The motion on the floor is the council approve the development variance permit to vary, actually to reduce the front yard setback of a single unit dwelling from 2 meters to 0.5 meters, as identified in the staff report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McGuire moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Discussion, Troy.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I did provide a bit of an overview about this proposal at the last meeting, and notices were sent out. At the time of writing a report, no written submission has been received, but of course there was the first late item there added to the agenda tonight from I'm not sure exactly the address it came from, but from I believe a neighboring there's someone nearby the property anyway, and with pointing out a few different concerns there with the proposal. Staff maintains our recommendation to approve this variance to relax the front yard to allow for the garage. I think certainly some valid points raised there, but I think that we can manage. It is hard. One of the items they bring up is whether there can be some assurances that they'll finish the project in time, and that is a challenge on certain projects, and part of that is in this particular case, part of the addition is a garage, part of it is living space. So if they want to occupy the living space area, then they do need to make sure that they complete the project to a certain point and before they get allowance to occupy that space. So there is a few tools in play there, but it can sometimes mean that there might be some exterior finishes or something that aren't completed to maybe what a neighbor would like to see, but it would, if it meets building code and municipal bylaw requirements, then that that may be compliant, even though it might not meet standards of a particular neighbor.
Thank you, Troy. Just before we go to Councillor McBain, The item of correspondence is in late items, and what I'd like to do, given that we're discussing this right now, is to bring that correspondence in as received. Could I have a motion to receive? Councillor McGuire, thank you, and Councillor McBain seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Councillor McBain, go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna turn to Councillor Roberts here because she's got a lot of in-town historic knowledge, and it does relate to the letter. There's reference in there to a maple tree that was planted, sounds like for in commemoration of World War II, and I know that you lived up in that area, so I was just curious if you knew anything about that. Okay.
You know, there's a big drive by there, and I'm not even see from the picture.
I can't hear that, Mr. Mayor.
Just trying to, oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I couldn't speak to the maple tree. It looks as though it's off to the far east side of the property, the giant fir tree in the front end there. Yes, it would have probably affected the tree. I don't have personal knowledge of the tree, however, although it's probably older than I am.
I mean, it's anecdotal, and so I thought since you lived up in that area, if you
Yeah.
could confirm that, so it's.
I think it looks from the pictures as though the tree would go if there was a garage there.
Right, yeah, and it's always tough to, I'm sorry if I'm going on here. but
Go ahead.
It's always tough to
So-
go on with anecdotal evidence, so I just wanted to.
Fair enough. Go ahead, Troy.
So, yeah, if I may interject there, I'm not exactly sure which tree they're referring to. There is the coniferous tree, more, in front of the house, but to the left of the front entrance there. And then there's a larger maple tree, well, deciduous tree at least to the left of that again. I believe that might be the one they're referring to. There is another deciduous tree to the right side of the photo, which appears to be rooted at least on the neighbor's property with some overhanging branches to where the garage is going. But the garage addition is on the right side of the house, so it's not on this side of the house where the deciduous tree or the coniferous tree or the larger deciduous tree. It's on this proposed garage is on the opposite side of that. If it is, there is a smaller deciduous tree there, which, I'm no tree expert, but it seems to me that that's probably not a 70-year-old tree, just from looking at the images here in the Google Street View. Perhaps it is, though. I don't know for sure. But there's still some setback. There would if that is the tree, there would definitely be some impact to the roots there, and probably some branches trimmed. But it looks to me like the bulk of the tree would not be directly impacted and would not have to be removed by any means. There should be no requirement or need to remove any trees to make way for this garage and living space addition.
Thanks, Troy. Further council? Call a question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Next up, we have the quarterly permit activity, Q2 of 2024. And the motion is that council receive the quarterly permit report from the manager of planning and sustainability for information. Councillor McGuire moves. Councillor McBain seconds. Discussion, Troy?
Yeah, not too much to add on this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Just kind of summarize some of the key files and activity over the last quarter. Sorry. I did add in there. It's kind of the first time council's seen this, but we usually speak to the number of permits and new dwelling units and everything. But I also did a summary of kind of the year to date for short-term rental licenses that have been approved. And so up to the end of June, we were at around 165 approved short-term rental licenses, 51 which were new and 114 which were renewals from previous years. And then so last year we had about 143 licenses, and the first full year of the program was about 88 approved licenses. By far the bulk of those are in the resort area, so 145 of the 165 approved licenses are in the resort area, and the rest are kind of spread through commercial areas or down by the campground area. And then I thought it might be interesting to note kind of where the property owners reside, I guess, or where they're stated in their application packages being from. So, you know, a good portion of those are Kimberley-based owners, 55 of them, 10 others elsewhere in BC. 76 are based in Alberta and 17 elsewhere in Canada, and then 7 overall international. 2 of those 7 being from the United States. So, new dwellings wise, you know, another, you know, we're off to a great year again here with 52 new dwelling units up to the end of June. For the same period in the previous 2 years was 43 and 39 specifically. Then, you know, the number of permits is staying fairly steady with those same time periods in the previous years. So yeah, just continue to be busy on the development front with new applications and you know, managing those development permits, building permits. But yeah, good to see the number of new units being continued to be added to the supply there. So.
Awesome. Councillor McBain.
No, this is just a completely my own opinion and comment. I just wanted to say on permits and people renovating their house, it's just well, new and old, but it's just really, it's really cool to see it. To me, it's a sign of the health of the community and some pride and ownership that's, you know, has really been coming back over the last decade into the town. You go around, I mean, there's all kinds of people working and improving their homes. So it's just really cool to see.
Yeah, thank you for the comment. So Troy, I really appreciate the data on the short-term rental licenses. It's good to see that we're making some significant inroads there. I think we continue to have in the neighborhood of a couple of hundred that are regularly advertised, you know, through one platform or another on average anyway. And to see that we're, you know, up at 165 of those, 3/4 of them basically we're getting there, which is good to see. How are we going to get kind of over the hump on this? So we still have another 50 or so that need to be licensed. How exactly are we approaching that?
Yeah, there's a number of ways. We continue to monitor listing activity through our software service, and having some success in identifying those, and combination of, you know, some that are operating that shouldn't be operating and can't be approved or can't get approval for license because of zoning or other reasons, and we're having some success in getting those listings removed and operations shut down. We're still, you know, learning and getting up to speed on the new provincial tools with the new Short-Term Rental Accommodations Act and the data portal and the enforcement tools available through that. So we're still just kind of getting our heads around all of that information and kind of comparing, sort of auditing, I guess, with what we have for information about those listings and those units. It's you know, it's constantly changing in terms of the number of units on the market, and so it, you know, can be, and some people are, you know, purposely try to avoid compliance. So it does make it challenging to track them down. And of course, we are a small team and tasked with a lot of, you know, priority is always development and other planning activities. So it is pretty tough to stay on top of this. But yeah, we're hopeful that some of those new tools to the province will be helpful there. But I think at some point we may need to look at some additional resources just to help with monitoring compliance there and making sure that we're keeping a good handle on those things. But yeah, I think at some point in the future here we'll have some more information available around that and allow for some more discussion with council about that.
Excellent. Thanks, Troy. Couple of other comments on that specifically. You know, with 40 or 50 that are problematic and probably trying to avoid as long as they can getting licensed, we may want to consider, I'm going to use the word fines. I could use the word incentives to get people to self-identify and get signed up. My concern is less about them than it is about those that aren't compliant and they're paying. You know, they've signed up, they're licensed and they're paying, and then we have these other guys that aren't. And I don't think I mean, it's been what, 2 years, 2 full years? And I don't think we should be patient with these guys that are being problematic. The other comment I would make is around the where they're located. The 145 in the resort area and the other 20 in places like downtown. Sitting around the regional district table and sitting around the resort community table, the other 13 around the province. Many of those municipalities are having major issues, and it's all because of zoning. We are so fortunate that we have virtually 95% of, these, the STRs we have in zones that are made for the STRs. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but I can tell you that when it comes to the issues that other communities are having, ours in trying to get everybody licensed is one of the minor, issues compared to what the others are dealing with. So yeah, we're in pretty good shape on that front. And yeah, that's it.
I have one comment, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I just want to remind people why we do the licensing in the first place. Because when we first started hearing about short-term rentals, the first one that came to mind was somebody who I knew was living in a place up on a top floor, had to share a bathroom and didn't have an exit. And so when somebody's paying money for that, there's a danger. And I think when you want to be in the short-term rental business, it's got to be safe. And I think this whole licensee thing and this whole compliance piece, we knew it from the get-go that it was going to be difficult to manage. But I think it behooves us to do everything we can to make sure that those people that are benefiting from the income of the short-term thing are doing it in the most safe manner for the people that are staying there.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Councillor Roberts. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor of receipt? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have the Community Works Fund Agreement, and the motion is that Council authorize the Mayor and Corporate Officer to execute the 10-year agreement beginning in 2024 for Community Works Fund cash, as outlined in the report. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Cairns. Everybody's enthusiastic about moving us, getting more money. Discussion. Krista, I beg your pardon. I'm just not used to you kind of being the boss.
Not a problem.
Let's make it happen.
2023 marked the final year of funding under the previous Community Works Fund agreement. And during that period, we received, the City of Kimberley received over $4.2 million, which was allocated to capital projects.
Wow.
So fortunately, the federal government in partnership with the provincial government and the Union of BC Municipalities have renewed the agreement under the Canada Community Building Fund agreement, and which will see another 10-year commitment to the Community Works Fund.
Awesome.
So we are bringing the agreement forward for authorization so that we can receive those funds going forward.
Thanks, Krista. Council, questions or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. So don't go away. A couple more items. Next up, we have the procurement report for the first half of this year, ending June 30th, 2024. And the motion on the floor is that council receive the information, the procurement report. Mover, please. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor McGuire seconds. Any comments?
No, just under the purchasing guidelines and procedures, we indicate that we'll bring a report to council indicating all of our procurements within that time frame. So this time we're bringing forward all those within the period of January 1st to June 30th. And thanks to the Operations Department and Fire Department for bringing that information forward for this report.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. It's always interesting to take a look at kind of who the main customers are that, we rely on to get work done. Council, any observations or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And next up, we have the first half of the year ending June 30th, 2024, the financial update report and the motion on the floor. Similarly, as the council received the report. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor McGuire seconds. Any discussion?
I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody.
Yeah. Any questions, council? These financial reports are awesome. I think it gives us, a great summary on how we're doing against the budget that we spent a lot of time on over the course of the fall and early spring. So thanks very much for you and your staff for all the work that you put into making these happen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Sam.
I probably know the answer, but just if you could clarify for me the administration and common services percentage of 106.9% spent by mid-year?
So under administration,
Yeah. I'm sorry, revenue. We're
Correct.
above revenue. You're right. My mistake. I was looking at expenditures and I'm mistaken there. Sorry.
See, you did know the answer.
I did all the time. Sorry.
Line painting, not to get too picky here, I just wanted to point out the line painting. After the streets are cleaned off, it's one thing to get them cleaned off in the springtime, but there's something about getting fresh lines painted on the streets that just really spruces everything up. And to put a cost associated with that of $53,376 is interesting. Does that cover everything? I'm assuming?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 53 grand to put every year to put lines on the streets. Personally, I think it's money well spent, but it's a lot of money.
People will turn at Timber Mart.
Where they're supposed to turn. That's right. Go ahead, Kevin.
I just have a quick question, just out of curiosity. So does that include the actual city facility workers painting the lines that when we see them out with their stencils and stuff like that? And also the contractors with the trucks and everything?
That's correct.
That seems like chump change for what it makes it look, the city look like.
Chump change.
Chump change, yeah.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Dunneback. Anything else anybody like to pull out? Call the question for Woody. Go ahead.
I was just going to comment that that's just for the contractor. That's just what we pay Line West, and they don't do any of the crosswalks or any of the, no.
That's okay.
Either way, I appreciate the tight lines.
They are good. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have the City of Kimberley Accessibility Plan Development Report. We have a couple motions on the floor. Let's start with the council receive a recommendation from the Accessibility Advisory Committee as outlined in the report. Mover, please. Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor McGuire seconds. Discussion. You speaking to this, Jasmine?
I am, if you have questions on the recommendation.
Just give us the Coles Notes version,
Sure.
how we arrived at where we're at.
The province has required us to develop an accessibility plan, so council appointed members to an accessibility advisory committee in January. And we've made some great strides and had some good conversation about what that might look like, but we don't have expertise and capacity to do the work of developing a plan that will be useful for us. So I outlined in the report a number of opportunities that we have, things that we've learned looking at other municipalities' plans, and we're fairly confident that by engaging a consultant, we could put together a plan that will be useful for us going forward. Using a lot of the information from plans that have been developed by the city through the use of consultants over the past number of years.
All right, thank you. Council. Go ahead, Councillor McBain.
No, I think it's just great to have a plan. I mean, when you're living in a town that was designed on a almost entirely ad hoc basis, with very little thought put into accessibility for the longest time. I mean, I think this is probably long overdue. So yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, fair comment. Just, I guess, not only on the requirement on the back end, but all of the technologies available today for accessibility it's a rapidly changing environment. And I mean, we can't expect our staff to be able to have that in-house expertise. And you know, capacity is always an issue for getting work done. So this does seem to be one of those places where hiring a consultant does make some sense. Councillor McGuire, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that support. I'm sitting on the accessibility committee right now, and there's some really keen members of the community that are involved in that committee. And I think that this will send the right message to them that we're, you know, serious about this. And I think they'll be a great resource to inform the consultant on this plan. So I'm in support.
Outstanding. Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Couple of other motions, well, one other motion, multiple pieces, and that is that council directs staff to hire a consultant to develop a plan, and further, that council direct the chief financial officer to make an amendment in year 1 of the 5-year financial plan bylaw to add $30,000 for the hiring of a consultant to develop that plan. And further, that council directs staff to pursue grant opportunities available to offset those costs. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor Dunneback seconds. Further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Awesome. Thanks, Jasmine. Great work on this. Okay, next up, we have the couple of check runs. Motion is that this, that the check runs be in the amounts of $1,587,329 and $463,599 be approved as paid. Councillor Roberts moves. Councillor McBain seconds. Go ahead, Sandra.
The largest amount that was dispensed was to McKay Contracting for the work they've done on the underwater sewers thing down, or the water and sewer that they've done down by the golf
the
course.
Marysville,
Yeah,
Business Park.
right through that.
Cool. Further? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we have the item of correspondence that was part of the late item. We've already accepted. We have 2 other pieces of correspondence. Can I have a mover to receive? Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Karen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor of receipt? That motion is carried. So we have kind of, did you guys want to make a comment about the letter that you had sent in? We can. Yeah, please. Kind of the summary, if you could. We don't normally do this, but since you're here and have taken the time to send the letter, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, fire chief. My husband Dave and the Galls, we've lived down there 50 years come October. And yes, we're getting older, but we're just getting it. We've just retired to where we're going to enjoy it in about 10 years. Like Sandra's comment, getting old and keeping our house. Galls have lived there about as long as we have. Our girls used to walk to school together. However, in those 50 years, we've watched that traffic grow, and most homes had a 1-vehicle family back then. Now it's 3-4 vehicles per household with people with kids anyway. And it is, all my years working up at the ski hill, bumper to bumper, you slow down at the slow to 50 sign just before St. Mary Road. They're crawling up my tailpipe when I'm, oh, excuse me. My son's pill reminder. They're almost driving up my tailpipe as I turn into my phone or driveway. And if I stop and look to try and slow them down, give them the message, but I've spoken with emails with Sergeant Woodcox, and he was wonderful to set up more patrols on that. I have talked to neighbors along the way. One would like the speed limit closed down to 40, which none of the others really do. The traffic to get in and out of our driveways to go to work or wherever is horrendous. And my original thought was to get this speed sign type thing at both ends of Marysville. The other end has the school and the golf course, but this end seems mostly the most stressful and dangerous. And a good example, I had put that Sundays and a lot of evenings, it's like a drag strip along that stretch of Road Avenue. And June 23rd, the Sunday, where a neighbor across the creek heard the cars revving up at the Purcell Golf Corner and sheared off a pole, which was a support pole for the telephone pole, which was leaning into our garage. We put a lot of effort building that garage. 2015, we're happy nobody was hurt, but that's happens all the time. It's very busy and I don't want to see anyone killed. The deer come across all the time and people are slamming on brakes. And when you wake up at 5:30 in the morning, because the traffic is loud, and I've watched out the window and I've seen people hitting the brakes. But as I put in an email to Sergeant Woodcox, all of you, and Sergeant Woodcox also noticed the deer. And my thought was, what happens if somebody slams on that brake when they're so close behind each other? Somebody's going to be killed. I'm really happy nobody has been killed so at this point, touch wood. But also at the end of the street, before right at the golf course turn, is a young family with 2 little children. And the traffic coming down that intersection from the golf course is also hard. And the dolls live at the other end of the.
Don't pay attention to the signs. We see it all the time. Even from the highway, we have the workers now and they zip right in. And
So, yeah, so I think we're appreciative of the point. Council McBain has a question.
No, I don't have a question. I'm glad that you brought this up. I brought up a couple things. Just the highway coming through Marysville. I've always struggled with the fact that we don't have delineators when people come out of the creek, pointing them towards downtown to cross at the proper sidewalk rather than just walking out into the highway. I actually, one thing I will bring up is this is an MOTI issue, really. It's less of a city issue than an MOTI issue. Ministry of Transportation, right? But I agree with you on the digital sign. An interesting thing that I've noticed is that I will admit there's times that I drive a little fast on the highway when you're on the 100 zone. Yes, but on the highway. But when people are coming into Marysville, and I do get frustrated with people who drive 80 between Kimberley and Cranbrook. What's interesting is it's not always, young people there's people who've driven 80 from all the way from Cranbrook to Kimberley, and all they do is slow down to about 65, 70 when they're coming through Marysville. So supporting what you're saying, it's not only just a certain, sect of people, whether it's, young people or workers. Everybody has been guilty of it from time to time. So to me, any type of reminder, and if MOTI is listening, any type of reminder, that a visual reminder that gets people to slow down and getting some pedestrian traffic directed away from the corner of the bridge approach there, to me, is long overdue. So I'm I'm doing a really roundabout way of supporting what you guys are proposing, but it isn't necessarily up to us.
No, and I understand Ministry of Transportation should play a part in it as it is part highway. But we also pay residential taxes on that avenue. as do the Gulls at the end down in the dust zone with all those. And what happens when people start moving into those townhouses or whatever they are? Multiple.
So I will, would like to say that the conversations that we have with the Ministry of Transportation include a variety of traffic issues along that highway, including the area down by the bridge that Councillor McBain has talked about. It's ongoing. None of it is simple. I mean, it sounds like it should be simple, but there are a lot of considerations that that go into it. So suffice it to say, thank you for the letter. It's on the radar. It continues to be part of the conversation, and stay tuned is about all I can offer you at this point in time. Thanks for bringing this forward, Cindy.
Well, I think this is the most simple thing. Going to Alberta often to see kids and grandkids, it seems an effective way. Like, oh, I'm doing 52.
Yeah, it's been working in
it
neighborhoods
works
in other
well.
parts of the city. So we've taken a note on that, and we'll be having a look.
Do you, the city be partially responsible for paying that, or would that all be Ministry of Transportation and Highways?
I'm not sure. You have a inkling on that?
That's a good question. My suspicion is that the Ministry of Transportation wouldn't allow us to place signs on the highway related to speed, but as the mayor's noted, we can certainly check into that.
Well, I think that's why I've included Sergeant Woodcox on all my correspondence and all of you, because as a community, if you know the problem exists, and it would help for you to also put it forward to the ministry, not just me, that, you know, somebody could be killed there. And
Which
going
we are.
around that bridge where there is no crosswalk, because it's every day we go for the mail or whatever, it's constant people walking there.
So to be clear, Cindy, we are talking to the ministry about this.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
just so you know, it's just no commitments are in place because as Jim mentioned, it's typically a little more complicated when you don't have ownership of the turf that you're trying to bring some compliance into. So we have to move on.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments
Did you have
and for
anything?
being here tonight. Thank you.
So just, my concern too is that with congestion, with the new housing there and everything else, now if you come off the bridge and we turn left to go into our place, you know, people cross the line, the center line, and if there's gonna be more than one person in the turnoff lane, that's really bad. You're just about T-boned or whatever so many times. This is summer, winter, when it's ice is worse.
Yeah, thank you for the comments.
Yeah, and we don't always get cleared down there. It's third day snow removal day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another concern. But, you know, we would hate to have one of our family killed.
Us too,
Yeah,
believe me.
I mean, and then we're facing lawsuits, right? The city doesn't need that, highway doesn't need that. Let's take precautions.
Yep, thanks. We do have to move, we do have to move on.
Yes.
We still have an in-camera meeting that we have to do this evening. So
Thank you for listening to us and
thank you for being here.
being patient.
Yeah.
I'd like to say one thing. Very sharp. It's like a blind spot. And we've only got one road in, same road out. All that building, so many parts. How much traffic is going to come and go. Now, we also need that wide, so you get a couple of vehicles going. Otherwise, you're going to have to stop, wait, line up, and I don't know, it's just totally crazy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Concern.
Sorry.
Okay, council, I need a motion to move in camera. Councilor McGuire, thank you. And Councilor Dunneback moves. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Awesome.